All right, welcome to the Saeder cast number 195 with JoshStrifeHayes. Oh my God, look at me.
It's a good start. It's only going to get better from here. Hello, Mr. Saeder. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's my pleasure, honestly. I'm very, very excited. Over the past week, I've been just glancing over a lot of your most recent videos, and you're doing a series right now, Worst MMO, correct?
Yes, that has been the most successful series on one of my 3 channels for the last almost 4 years now. It's done remarkably well. It's given me a very interesting career. I've played a lot of very strange MMORPGs. It's opened a lot of doors, and I'm excited to talk about the strange and varied career it's given me.
Let's just jump right in, because one is I never fully understand how popular just MMOs are in general and people's general interest in even watching videos on MMOs. Were you surprised at how successful this series has gone? And also, can you just give a brief overview of how you got into that series and what other projects you were doing beforehand that led you into that?
Absolutely. So the success of the series, the interesting thing is it's actually not focused on the MMO aspect. It's focused on the negativity of it, because nothing is more shareable and more attractive to humans than things that go wrong. We love watching things go wrong. We love watching the worst of something. If you title a YouTube video, "The worst of whatever," and then you title a competing video, "The best of whatever," people are just attracted to the worst. People have this morbid curiosity about what is bad, and the MMORPG genre is alien to a lot of people. It's unknown. It's still a niche within gaming itself. So I was able to corner that market relatively quickly. But for anyone who's unaware, my name is JoshStrifeHayes. I've been an MMORPG player my entire life. I love RuneScape, I love Final Fantasy XIV, I love Guild Wars 2, Elder Scrolls Online. I would say RuneScape is the game that I played for the longest when I was younger, but it's given me a good foundation to expand out into other games. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor. That's all I ever wanted to be. I can remember we had GoldenEye, the James Bond film, on VHS, and I would watch it religiously. And eventually I went up to my mom and I said, "Mom, that's what I want to be." And she looked at me with pride and said, "You want to be a secret agent?" And I said, "No, I want to be Pierce Brosnan." And that's when I realized I wanted to be an actor. So my entire life was about acting and performing. I trained as an actor. I went to a lot of acting classes, acting schools. I was doing relatively well in theater. I was an acting teacher for a while. I've had a lot of weird and varied jobs we'll chat about later. But I would come home from rehearsals or performances and I would play MMORPGs to relax. Sometimes I wanted to turn my brain off and just grind at a skill for a long time. Sometimes I wanted to engage with a group of friends and try and take down a complicated boss. Sometimes it was a bit of silly role-playing. Can we beat this boss while all dressed as, dwarves? It was variation, and I loved it. But I was struggling with a couple of the bosses. Neverwinter, specifically. I was playing Neverwinter online. I enjoyed it for a long, long time, and I was struggling with a couple of bosses. I couldn't find a guide online that was good enough. So I said, I can do this. I can teach. I can explain. I can record my screen. Making a video is easy, surely. And then I realized that making a video was not in any way easy, and I was terrible at it. But I was able to get the information across. So I started making more guides for Neverwinter specifically. And then someone said to me, "Hey, I really want to play this game, but it's a bit too intimidating as a new player. Everyone's already played for years. All the guides require you to have the best items. They're talking about all these abbreviations that I don't understand. Can you make a beginner's guide?" So I made a beginner's guide to Neverwinter, which did really well. And then I made a beginner's guide to Terra, the Exiled Realm of Arborea, when that was still a game. And then a beginner's guide to Guild Wars 2. And these beginner's guides, they were picking up steam. They were doing well. I've had a lot of people contact me and say, "Hey, I've started playing games because of your guides." And while I was researching all of these games to make guides on, I started getting those banner ads around the side of my screen. The ones for games like Evany or League of Angels, "Help us, my king." The kind of dodgy Russian websites that ask you to download some kind of auto-clicker Bitcoin miner game. And I just thought, how bad can this game really be? It's an MMORPG. It clearly can't be that bad. So I downloaded a game called League of Angels, and I played it, and I thought, this is terrible. This is dire. This is mobile levels of crap. So I made a video called Worst MMO Ever, League of Angels. And that was meant to be it. That was going to be the end of the whole series. It was just, is this the worst game ever? The problem is the video did pretty well. It was a bad video. It was almost 2 hours of me unedited playing a game. But then a few months later, the sequel came out, League of Angels Heaven's Fury. And I had to make a video on that. I had to make Worst MMO Ever 2, League of Angels Heaven's Fury. And then I thought, you know what, I should edit this down. Because then I realized 2 videos is a series. No one wants to download these games. Nobody wants to risk it. But everyone is curious. There is a morbid curiosity about how bad things can get. So people wanted to see the terribleness without playing the game. And that I provided. And then I realized there are thousands of MMORPGs out there that people want to see. People are fascinated by these dead worlds, the dreams of a creator reduced to this liminal space online where adventurers used to be. Shopkeepers stand there silently waiting someone to buy their wares that are terrible. Bosses who haven't been killed in years. People are intrigued by this dead online space, but no one's playing it because the game is objectively terrible. So I thought, hey, I've got a series here. I'm going to play every MMORPG I can find in an attempt to find the worst. And so far, we are about 85 episodes into the series, and I've played so many MMOs.
Dear God. Okay, so 85, and are these all MMOs you had never touched before, or are you covering the ones that you actually had given at least a little try earlier on?
So there's actually a combination of games that I have played before and games that I haven't played before. Sometimes a game will be so niche, like Sphere 3, Rage of the Devastator, or Shroud of the Avatar, that I've never even heard of them. Some of them are strange localized games like the Russian life simulator Avatarica, which is effectively just kind of online dance simulator. Some of these games are so niche, they are bubbles within bubbles within bubbles, and nobody will ever find them or could be realistically expected to play them. Some of them are extremely popular games like Neverwinter Online, because even though Neverwinter is a successful game, and it was my game of choice for a long time, the journey is about trying to find the worst, not saying that every game is the worst. And even bad games have great design choices. And even good games have terrible design choices. So the series has become almost a pseudo entertainment review of the MMO. I always try and find something good in the bad games and something bad in the good games. Now, from a purely viewer-based point of view, it makes sense if I make Worst MMO Ever World of Warcraft, because the hype, the clickbait, people will watch. The irony with this series is, when I cover games that are genuinely terrible that nobody's ever heard of, fewer people watch the videos because they aren't as interested. They want to see me play a game that they've played or that they know of or that is famous and hear me rip it apart. So some of the games are genuinely unknown. Those videos don't get as many views. Some of them are games that I personally love that I wanted to critique, like Neverwinter. Some of them were games that I've never played but I've heard good things about, like Guild Wars 1. I'd never played Guild Wars 1. I played it for the series. I think it's fantastic. It's now one of my favorite games.
Okay, that is cool. So you've covered 85, and it seems like you've actually found some gems in that. Do you have right now, or are you able to share what the absolute worst of the worst is so far?
So this is probably the question I get asked the most, whether it's at real life conventions or people message me, or what is the worst game? And I know this is going to be quite an artistic answer, but it's the worst for you. It's whatever you don't want from it. If a game has absolutely incredible raiding, but no life skills, and all you want are life skills, it's going to be the worst game for you. And if a game is extremely hardcore PvP, lose everything on death, brutal landscape like Mortal Online is, if you want that, it's got you covered. That's fantastic. It's very much saying what's the worst food. Someone will like the food that you provide them. It will be someone's favorite dish. So to me, the worst are actually the games that I can't remember because they didn't do anything. I try and explain to someone that I watched a great video by Mark Rosewater, lead designer of Magic the Gathering. And whenever Mark is designing a card, if you haven't played Magic the Gathering, phenomenally complicated card game, but a lot of cards. And when Mark is designing one, he will send it out to the testers and ask them for their feedback from a scale of 0, I absolutely hate this card and would never play it, to 10, I love this card and it's fantastic. If a card comes back with 5s and 6s across the board, it's a boring card because nobody hates it, nobody loves it, it probably won't see play anywhere, it's not going to find a home, it's totally forgettable. But when a card comes back with all zeros and all tens, a kind of combination of I both absolutely loathe this and absolutely love this, someone's going to build around it. Someone's going to find a home for that card. It's going to become a deck somewhere. And the reason this links back to MMORPGs is if I play a game that I absolutely hate, it's because it has made strong choices and someone will love them. When I play a game that I just don't care about, it's because it's not made any choices, or it's tried to play it safe. It's tried to be middle of the road, perfectly vanilla, perfectly normal, perfectly boring, and that gets forgotten. In order to be memorable and loved, you have to make choices that some people will hate. So to me, the worst MMO is one that is produced by a boardroom simply to appeal to as many people as possible, not the fan base they actually want to have.
Yeah, that seems to be a common pitfall in gaming in general is, and I can't remember if it was a video of yours or some other creator, maybe it was Idle or some other person that covers MMOs, but there seems to be this idea floating around that like you need to make a game that truly is the most epic, the most just open-ended, and that appeals to the largest players, like the largest amount of players as possible, and those always seem to fail. And although they do capture some attention, it feels like it's
very ephemeral attention. It's very fleeting because you're not trying to capture something that is deep, ingrained, hardcore love. You're trying to capture awe and inspiration and amazement. It's a firework display. It's great to look up and watch it while you are there, but once you leave, the memory fades very quickly. You might smile when you remember going, but it burns out incredibly fast. Idle makes phenomenal videos. He apparently is the self-proclaimed president of MMORPGs, and me and him need to have a discussion about what exactly grants that title. But he does make... No, I've had a chat with him before. He's a lovely lad. He makes phenomenal, good videos. And what I try and explain to people is if you appeal to everyone, then you are appealing to two different people who like complete opposite ends of the spectrum, which means you cannot fully appeal to either of them. If someone likes the color red and someone else likes the color blue and you provide them with purple and say, hey, look, I've appealed to both of you, the irony is that you actually haven't, because you're giving both of them 50% of something they don't want. I try and explain this to people, as in, if you sit down for a meal with 4 or 5 people, and each of you want very different dishes, very, very different food. If you provide a bowl of slop with all of the foods you all want mixed together to everyone, you've not actually satisfied anyone. Because even though they're getting 20% of the food they want, they're getting 80% of the food they don't. And it's not going to appeal to anyone. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. That's the pitfall. When companies say, hey, we want the broadest possible audience, I sometimes have to sit executive down and say, you are going to succeed far more with a hardcore, engaged, dedicated 10,000 people than you would with 1 million people who can drop you the next time something interesting or something flashy happens. It's the same with YouTube, it's the same with TikTok, it's the same with Twitch. If you try to appeal to absolutely everyone at any given moment, you are not building stable, long-lasting, foundational relationships with anyone.